Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I'm Paul Miller, your Notebook LM Solutions Architect. Today, the training wheels, they are officially off. Sitting across from me is our resident VFX expert from Deep Dive Consulting. And you, listening right now, you are intermediate student. We're absolutely thrilled to welcome you to this Round 2 Masterclass. If you caught our last explainer, you've got the basics down. But today, we're setting the stakes sky high. We're going to take you from that beginner kind of prompt and pray mindset straight to full-blown sci-fi level directorial mastery. Let's get right into it. Yeah, and I'm going to give it to you straight right out of the gate. The era of basic, static AI slideshows, it's completely over. I need you to totally discard that beginner's mental model. The glorified PowerPoint presentation is dead, my friends. What you're accessing now in Notebook LM is a highly orchestrated engine that literally functions collaboratively like a full Hollywood production studio.
Wait, hold on. So I can't just upload a PDF and get a nice little presentation with some clip art anymore?
Well, you can, but you'd be wasting an incredibly powerful piece of cinematic tech. We're moving way beyond that today. Okay, let's look at the syllabus. Today we're hitting 5 key areas. 1. The Holy Trinity Engine. 2. The Multi-Lens Prompting Framework. 3. Advanced Audio and Post-Production. 4. Pro Workflow Batching Strategies. And 5. The Final Evolution. Starting right off with Section 1, the Holy Trinity Engine. Okay, so to actually command this system, I need to know how the engine works under the hood, right? Because when I first used this, my mindset was basically just upload a business PDF, get a video with some stock footage. What's actually wrong with that approach? Honestly, that search engine mindset is going to absolutely destroy your final output. The Pro Director reality is a completely different workflow. See, the system isn't just yanking stock photos from some massive database. Instead, it executes a forensic semantic analysis to find actual narrative tension. Then, it uses abstract latent generation to literally build original 3D conceptual art from scratch. Finally, it applies fluid temporal pacing. So it's not a search engine, okay? It's an assembly line.
Right. And we call this the Holy Trinity because it consists of 3 elite models working collaboratively. First up, Gemini 3 is your creative director. It analyzes your dense documents and actually writes the structural script. Then, Nano Banana Pro, or Imogen, steps in as your concept artist. It builds the 3D abstract graphics and textures right in latent space. And finally, Veo 3 acts as your animator. It takes those static elements and applies fluid semantic motion to just completely obliterate the uncanny valley. It's wild.
Moving on to Section 2, the Multi-Lens Prompting Framework. So here's the thing. If you leave these AI models to their own devices, they will absolutely default to generic corporate tropes. You know the ones? Flat vector graphics of faceless people shaking hands over a giant spreadsheet. Yuck. You have to use custom steering parameters.
Exactly. You must command the virtual camera, forcing the AI to be your cinematographer. And you do this by structuring your prompts through 3 specific lenses. Use the prime lens for immediate focus. Think tight, handheld macro shots that highlight micro increments in movement. Use the wide-angle lens for sweeping drone shots to establish your environmental context and spatial boundaries. And use the telephoto lens with a high depth of field to visually bridge those long-term outcomes without using literal, cheesy transitions.
That sounds incredible, but how do I stop the AI from just slapping flat text all over the screen? I really hate that basic presentation look. Yeah, you have to enforce strict source integrity constraints. In your steering prompt, you literally copy and paste this exact snippet. Constraint, 0 plain text, show don't tell. All statistics from the sources must be visualized as physical 3D architectural elements or glowing data streams. Seriously, you have to explicitly ban its lazy habits. Don't give it a choice.
And that perfectly brings us to semantic motion. Remember, camera movement must always have meaning. If the audio track is slowly unpacking a really complex definition, you do not want Veo 3 executing some fast, jarring pan. No way. Instead, you'd prompt for a Z-axis plunge, like a slow, creeping push-in on a document. This links the physical movement of the camera inextricably to the analytical weight of the script. It's a total game changer.
Right, and to maintain that perfect illusion of reality, you also got to use diegetic typography. Basically, this ensures your data doesn't look like some cheap PowerPoint overlay, but exists organically inside the generated 3D environment. We're talking about text that actually reacts to the lighting. Maybe it looks like a glowing neon sign, a label physically etched onto a leather folder, or actual chalk drawn directly on a blackboard.
Let's jump to Section 3, Advanced Audio and Post-Production.
Now, Notebook LM natively gets you about 90% of the way there. But if we want to fix those robotic audio limitations and gain absolute cinematic control, we kind of have to move outside of the standard environment.
Yeah, for sure. Because I want a multi-host dynamic or just more emotional stutters and natural breaths. How do I even do that if Notebook LM acts as a closed system?
Great question. You execute the Pro Handoff workflow. It's 3 steps. Step 1, generate your visual baseline in Notebook LM and ask the chat for the separated transcript. Step 2, port that script to an external audio AI. Think 11 Labs or Murph AI. And here's the trick. Lower the stability slider to force vocal emotion, voice cracks, and intense peaks. It sounds incredibly human. Then, step 3, bring it all into your nonlinear editor, your NLE, and sync it up using audio ducking for absolute syllable-by-syllable control.
Exactly. So for your NLE post-production workflow, you're downloading the raw VO3 video renders and your isolated audio tracks separately, and then you're stacking them in a timeline. You line the visual pacing with the structural themes of the audio, you're executing sharp match cuts on the audio pauses, you're cutting right on the visual transitions, and hitting those cuts perfectly on specific data citations. You really have to let the complex moments breathe. It's all about rhythm.
Which leads us to Section 4, Pro Workflow Batching Strategies.
Look, creating these cinematic pieces requires astronomical compute power on Google's servers, and that comes with some pretty brutal logistical constraints for daily projects.
Yeah, it's time for a heavy stakes reality check. $250. That is the monthly cost of the Google AI Ultra plan. You absolutely must have this tier just to unlock the premium cinematic engine and get access to the VO3 integration. So it's a serious investment for serious creators. Not gonna lie.
And get this, even paying that premium, you hit a pretty draconian limit, a maximum of 20 cinematic generations per day. That's it. If you write a lazy prompt, or if the AI hallucinates some weird graphical error just because you forgot to define the lighting, boom, you just burned your daily allocation on garbage. Before you even type a prompt, you've got to perform a rigorous capacity for care evaluation.
So, the crucial point here is mastering our 50-minute batching cycle strategy. Generally, a cinematic video takes roughly 50 minutes to generate in the background. Now, while Video A is rendering in the cloud, a pro doesn't just sit there staring at the screen. No way! From minute 2 all the way to 49, you are actively prepping your external sources and writing those complex multi-lens prompts for Video B. Then, the very moment Video A finishes at minute 50, you export it and immediately hit Generate on Video B. That right there is how you maximize those restrictive limits for true daily efficiency.
All right, let's bring it home with Section 5, the final evolution. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the Holy Trinity engine room to multi-lens frameworks, the match-cut timeline, and those hardcore batching logistics. I want to formally acknowledge your graduation from beginner to professional directorial deployment. It truly is a monumental architectural leap. Think about it. You now have the power to collapse what used to take a whole team of editors weeks to do into literally just minutes of active work. But I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative question. As this technology scales and we perfect these cinematic workflows, will meticulously directed 3D mini-movies completely replace the need for us to ever manually read dense 50-page research papers again? Like, is this the final evolution of how we consume and learn information? Definitely think about that as you go out and test your new directorial powers. I'm Paul Miller. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Happy generating.